So welcome to our webinar, our session on how to regain your essential nature, release all negativity, limitations, and anxiety by resetting your nervous system to its natural state. And this has many, many benefits, as you'll see as we go through. So we want to show you how you can take yourself effortlessly from overwhelm, worry, stress, negative emotions, fear, feeling trapped, that old entrapment one, a lot of people feel that one, despondency, inability to express yourself fully, that's a very important one, and many other restrictions. And when you do that, when you can transcend or lift yourself out of that, as we'll be describing here in this session, then you'll be able to access inner strength, self-confidence, self-esteem, creative power, inspiration, and intuition. So those are obviously very, very life-enhancing qualities to have there for you. And together, they make up your natural state. And there's nothing better than living in your natural state because it is your true self. And once you experience this, and I'm going to show you what the false self is in a minute, once you experience this, you will realize that the answer to all your limitations, all those things I've just described, lies within you. Because if you're not living in your true self, then clearly you're living in the grip of your false self, with all the compromises and inadequacies that come along with that, and of course spoil your life. So this personal mind, we call it, in psychology is called the operating ego, the old friend ego that is often attacked in spiritual paths, or today it's called the narrative self. Now, you don't want to remain stuck in this personal mind and be controlled by its patterns. It is this that actually makes you feel you can't break through, or it puts you in a state of alarm or frustration, or that life has no meaning. And let me explain these to you, because this is very, very important. This is how everybody is living their life. They're actually moving through life in this way, which is very sad, in fact. And fortunately for you, there is a system, a done-for-you system, that you can just lay back and watch all this be relieved from you using the forces of nature with some personal development methods, which I'll mention later on. So let's start by seeing what is it that blocks your path to total release from negative states. Because quite frankly, most people live in some sort of negative state. They may not be conscious of it. They may lose touch because of the years that have gone by with their youthful enthusiasm. But most people live in some sort of negativity for an awful lot of time of their life. And what the problem is that your nervous system has been compromised by your upbringing, and it's holding itself in a state of tension, albeit in the subconscious, but there is tension. And when you go to some deep relaxation exercise or process or something like that, or retreat, you feel that tension, and you let go of it, and you're not aware of it until you let go of it in many, many cases. So what does tension means? It means in the sense of being filled with elements of fear, anxiety, humiliation, threats, rejection, even in many cases utter hopelessness. And that's what happens as your personal mind is fashioned and grows. And as you grow up, you develop a whole range of coping mechanisms to deal with the realities that you find yourself in. And this is everything that happens in your childhood: home, school, siblings, influential people, things that happen randomly in one's life, as these things do. And one of the most important things to consider is your reactions. How did you react to the various circumstances that you were confronted with? It is your reactions that is very, very important. You only have to look at children to see what actually takes place. If you see a child told off or shouted at by a parent or someone else, there is a microsecond or perhaps longer of freezing. When they're attacked, they freeze, just like a kangaroo caught in the spotlight. It might be a split-second thing. They might just freeze and relax, or it might go right through to bursting into tears. If you've watched a child, you can see how that happens. Now, this freezing, this is very important, is part of the fight and flight response. So that response is actually fight, flight, or freeze. Because if you're a native person in the jungles and there's a great big tiger appears around the corner, you either take flight, you run away, or you, take flight, or you freeze up, okay, or you have the fighting possibility where you maybe take the tiger on, which is probably not such a wise idea. So those three things are biologically in your system, and when anything happens to you that's threatening, mildly threatening even, those kick in some way. And so if you're a child, of course, you have no abilities to defend yourself. What happens is that you take these things that are being projected onto you, unpleasant things in other words, and you either do that, you either shout, "Don't you do that to me," perhaps, or you run off, or you freeze, more likely. Most people freeze. And what is freezing? It's the nervous system going, gripping, holding on, clenching its fists, so to speak. Now, this is in everybody, and you can see it happening, and particularly in physical assaults or something like that, very, very unpleasant, or even just not being included in a group. That's another big one. Non-inclusion is a big wound, and people need to experience inclusiveness and to be energetically embraced by others to feel safe and secure. Now, that is not happening very much these days, probably because of the screens. People are not learning to relate. They're not getting together as they used to. Everybody's on a screen looking at each other through an iPhone or whatever it might be. And what happens is, as you grow up, and this is what's made you, this is what's given you all the restrictions, and what it means is that each individual's mind behaves differently to the things that they are confronted with. This is their history, in other words. Some children can be teased and just laugh it off, whereas others can be completely wounded and mortified by such behaviors towards them. And you can add to that, to those standard personal rejections and attacks that happen all day, often every day, you can add all the different tensions, uncertainties, anything that frightens or builds stress, anything like that, or a sense of being concerned about making a mistake. A lot of people feel very difficult about that. All the normal things of life. And what happens then for you, and you've done this, is you start to develop this inner holding pattern. Everybody does this. It's just the degree to which they do it. And this inner holding pattern in your physical body is at a cellular level. And it starts to develop a series of holding patterns to hold down emotion. Emotion is emotion, energy, and motion. And you build up thousands, perhaps more than that, hundreds of thousands of little tiny sort of clenched fists that sit throughout your nervous system and hold onto you. And it is this that holds you back in all the various areas of your life and causes all your problems. It causes your relationship problems, your financial problems, your career problems, a lot of health problems, of course, all those sorts of things. So keep in mind from now on that the biggest factor that holds you back is cellular tension. The cells of the body, in other words. It means that you are, unbeknown to yourself consciously, actually holding on very tightly at an unconscious level. And the cells of your body become more and more tense as the years go by. And it builds in your subconscious, you may not be aware of it consciously, but in your subconscious it builds a feeling that you are waiting somewhere with trepidation because a dangerous event is about to occur which may affect you or even threaten your whole life. In other words, you are as if in a jungle waiting for a predator to come. And you see it very, very clearly in people's body language. If you study body language, it's extremely interesting to see. People have no idea they're reacting to the past in this way. They hold their body in particular postures, such as hunching the shoulders, rounding the back, gripping the teeth. The jaw is thrust forward or pulled back in. They don't have the ability to touch their toes without bending their knees because the calves and the hamstrings are so seized up. Their faces lose symmetry. Both sides of a face should be equal and opposite unless there's been an injury. They should be absolutely balanced in what's called symmetry. So one side looks slightly different to the other, and so on. These are all a result of the holding patterns. And this inner state, this inner gripping of your whole physical system at the cellular level is becoming the normal state for more and more people as the pressures of society build. The trouble is that they are not aware of it. No one, unless you're doing personal growth work, is really aware of it. Why? Because it feels like their natural state, because that tension that you're holding on to builds incrementally, day after day, week after week, month after month. And what happens to you is, because this is building up, building up, building up, you are forced to project it out into your world and subconsciously, in other words, not known to you consciously, create challenges, limitations, and confronting experiences to match your inner life. This is why your life is as it is. You have all these clenched fists, thousands of them, inside your system, holding on, burying stuff, all that kind of thing that should have come out naturally, reactions that should have come out naturally and haven't. And you develop feelings of being limited, or at a deeper level, which is much more common today, you experience it as reoccurring anxiety and fear. These are the most common ones in society, and I've heard from medical professionals that they believe that anxiety-based disorders will become the biggest illness in society, in the developed world in particular. And what that means is that you, this is not as a patient in the hospital, this is you just in your daily life, you are going to make choices in your life that match those inner patterns. This is what most people don't know, that what happens out there is based on what's going on in here. So if you have severe buried anxiety, fear, despondency, whatever it is, you have no option but to create things out there. You will make choices in your outside life to match your inner life. And many people waste their entire lives trying to fix up their outside life, not knowing, of course, that it's something within themselves, obviously, which gives them the choices, which then become their life. So you may not actually be in a situation when you have this that causes limitations in your world. It's just that you read your life and its possibilities in that way. You feel limited. So there's an opportunity at work for a promotion, but because you feel limited, you imagine that the boss doesn't like you, or Joe Blow is much better than you and not for point, and that kind of thing. This is how it actually works. So the real trap for you is to be actually unaware that it is your own deeper feelings that are sourcing into your consciousness the ideas about your life. You know, if you close your eyes and try to meditate, or just before you go to bed, the mind is monkey chattering on. You don't have much hope in controlling that. It's just on the run, and stress builds it, old anxieties fuel it, blah, 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 on it goes, and you're like a puppet on the strings based on that. And that is normal human life. So what happens is that these intense feelings construct your life experience, and your life experience has to match them totally. So if you wonder what's going on inside you, check your life. A lot of people ask me, what do you think my money pattern is? And I say, check your bank account. It's very obvious. That's where you're going to see and be able to read your inner patterns. So the cellular tension can not only cause you to experience many negative emotions, but it can also spoil your ability to enjoy a deep, natural, regular, restful sleep, for instance. And if you could just rid yourself of these old habits of the internal holding on of your nervous system, your muscles, your ligaments, your skin, and even your organs, then your life could transform. People try to transform their lives without doing this. It is really a waste of time, I can assure you. You need to remove the cellular tension, and everything spontaneously will improve, as you'll see as we go through. So if you could do that, if you could relieve these things, get back to your true self, in other words, then you'd be able to become everything you could possibly be, because there would be no restrictions to you expressing yourself fully, quite obviously. And that's the key. What you're holding down is your inner power. It's energy. That's what it is. An emotion is emotion, energy, and motion. It's all to do with energy. And you are holding it down, blocking your internal power to express itself fully in your life. Okay? You'd have nothing holding you back. Now, wouldn't that be great? Imagine what you could do if you were like that. You would feel love and compassion. You'd be able to connect at a heart level in your relationship with those closest to you, instead of playing out the past over and over again. And this is how a young child lives. And for you to gain that childlike freedom is one of the greatest benefits that you can have from releasing cellular tension. As the saying goes, you must be like a child to enter the kingdom of heaven. And the kingdom of heaven is what? It's being in the superconscious, that state of absolute freedom where you have merged and become one with the universe, where you experience altered and higher states of consciousness and everything becomes alive and filled with energy. This is your natural state. And the natural state is your true self. And it's absolutely essential for you to realize that right now you have lost touch with your true self. In the business and busyness of your daily life, coupled with the permanent, albeit unconscious, cellular tension, rarely does your true self have a chance to be fully present. It's always there, but it's buried under these contracting kinds of things. So what are those contracting things? It is a collection of memories, conditioning, stories, emotions, and beliefs, most of which are not based in reality, but are in fact hypnotic instructions, obviously usually downloaded from your parents and your upbringing. Instead of you, your true self I'm talking to now, living your life, you are being lived by these past instructions and limitations, and worse still, you have no idea this is happening. You just know that something's wrong. This is how it works. People know there's something not quite right, they're missing out on something, they're not in tune with nature, or however they term it, they are missing out on something. And this is an important distinction, because all these impressions together are called the false self. This is what the false self is. And it is why people feel lost deep down, and they are never, ever able to feel fulfilled. The false self, this personal mind, this ego, this collection of memories, collection of subpersonalities, this thing that you believe is you, can never, ever give you fulfillment. It can't. It's a collection of effects that have been added onto you, and of course the thousands of little clenched fists that live inside holding you back. And you find that people, however successful they become, it is not who they are. We've seen recently well-known sports stars suiciding in their 30s with seemingly the absolutely brilliant life, happy family, children, and money and jobs and degrees and all sorts of things. They've got the picture, they're living the ultimate, and then they knock themselves off. Why? Because they are not in touch with their true self. If they were in touch with their true self, they would feel great, because that's what the true self feels. But so many people are gripped by depression and negativity and stress and anxiety and despondency and hopelessness and all these things simply because they are identifying with what they are not what they are. So remember always, and don't think there's anything wrong with you, that the false self will never satisfy you. It can't. It's an addition to you. It's not who or what you are. And nor can you escape from the false self on your own. It's like trying to lift yourself up with your bootstraps, as the old saying goes. But you do have within you already the faculty which can make easy work of dealing with this life-restricting problem. So the effects of being conditioned and brought up in an unloving environment, or even a partly loving one, causes every human being just below the surface to be gripped by long-term habits and patterns of withdrawal and restriction. And these become muscular. This is the other thing. That's why people get tight shoulders, stiff necks, tight calves, all this sort of thing, because the muscles are a storehouse. The subconscious is the body, is often said. You hear that phrase. And so what's happened to you in the past and all the holding patterns are through the actual body, and your muscles literally hold tremendous tension that usually only increases as a person continues through life. And that's why you find in all the ancient traditions, particularly yoga, that there are a series of exercises to stretch out the muscles, because what that will do is remove a lot of these gripping, holding patterns and free up your ability to live a natural life. And in addition to freeing up the muscles, there are even more subtle levels of emotional and psychological holding on that needs additional types of freeing as well. So there's nothing wrong with being like that. This is the average human being. This is what drives everybody. But because it ruins so many things in your life, you want to get rid of it and identify very clearly that cellular tension is the source of the long-held negative emotions, such as anxiety, fear, emotional outbursts, hopelessness, negative emotions in general, which there are a lot of them, blockage to free-flowing self-expression, and relentless unhappiness, these sorts of things. And these memories cause these kinds of feelings. They're usually buried in the subconscious mind, but they can also give you feelings of being overwhelmed and thrown into a sort of state of fright by something within yourself. And again, this is normal. You can't push anybody's buttons very much without them really going into a dark, negative emotional state, because there's this far deeper kind of thing. So let's look more closely at your nervous system, and so you can understand the prime cause and therefore free yourself. And this is not just for people who have an actual anxiety disorder, it's for every human being who's not merged with their superconscious, the highest part of their nature, and who is still affected by the original pattern. And this is what you might remember if you were involved in Catholicism, perhaps. You might remember they would talk about the original sin. So sin means miss the mark. And the original sin is missing the true self. That's what it is. And that's the sin, the missing the mark, that you have to repair. Something to do with how you behave and whether you break the rules or something like that. It's getting back in touch with your natural self. So when we're looking at that something deeper, you have built up within yourself this sense of being a person, an individual, due to the upbringing and everything else that we discussed. And what has happened is that there are elements in your life and inside you now which cause a permanent sense of uncertainty and instability about life itself and your place in it. These are based on fear. Everybody has fear because everybody experiences nightmares at some time or other in their life. A lot of people say, oh, I'm not frightened, you know, but they are. So the human being takes the fear-based conditioning that we've just described on board, and it's translated in their own personal minds to a belief, albeit subconsciously, a belief that life itself is actually to be feared. And this is reinforced every day on a daily basis by the media, the news media. As you know, it's always bad news. So people are living in a very subtle sense of immediate danger. In other words, they live in a state of startled apprehension. And so everybody's on a sort of tightrope wire, if you like. And the false self that you are imprisoned in at the moment has created a sense of the danger of being alive, because it is not who they truly are, and there's a continual unconscious threat from their personality that it might collapse and leave them defenseless or even threaten their existence, and the only other option is death itself. And it's more pronounced in others. Many people have a very strong personal mind or ego, and they've developed enough psycho-emotional armoring, you know, those kinds of people, to wall themselves off from experiencing this deeper fear. In fact, they've buried it very deeply so they can function. So what's happened, in other words, this is the big one, for most people, is that there is a great fear of life and a fear of actually being alive. This is the result of everything that has just been described to you. And it's a very, very strange catch-22 in that they are alive, but subconsciously they are filled with cellular tension, which keeps them from experiencing their true self, which is where that full aliveness, bliss, and ecstasy are experienced. You know how it is. Have you ever experienced a time when you're sort of in the zone, or everything's going so well, and your spirit opens, you might say, and you're filled with joy and love, and it's a beautiful sunset, or whatever it is, and you just feel great, almost ecstatic? That's the true self. That's what you should be in all the time. And if you're not in that all the time, then there's something wrong, quite clearly. It doesn't mean that your mind won't get involved with jobs and doing things and what have you. You're not going to walk around like that all the time, obviously. But there should be a sense of strength and courage and pleasure just about by being alive. That should be what it is. So the true self is actually just the other side, so to speak, of the cellular tension. The cellular tension is something that grips you, gives you anxiety, confusion, sleeplessness, all those things. And yet just the other side of it, underneath it, you might say, there is this blissful self that's been lost to you. Now imagine if you could get that back. If you could get back your true self, how your life would change. You'd become incredibly strong. You'd have the strength of a lion or a gorilla. You'd feel absolute confidence and certainty. You'd be filled with self-esteem and personal power. You'd have a creative attitude towards your own life, plus creative powers, obviously. You'd be able to express yourself in whatever way you want. You'd have the sort of animalistic power that you see in a lion or a gorilla, those sorts of things. And this is what you can live by. And at the moment, you're not living by that. You're living by your personal myth, your ego, your feeling of being an individual entity which is in fact contained within this body. That's what this deep cellular fear does to you. And basically, you're always close to worry, confusion, disappointment, feelings of entrapment, these kinds of things. They're just pretty close by. If things don't go in the way you want them to, you soon tip into that direction. And worse still, this, as is now proven clearly, can result in physical disease or lack of ease. And that comes from fear of being alive. If you are instructing yourself continually about the fear of being alive, what's your body going to respond? Oh, you don't like being alive? Well, I'll have to create some disease, so to speak. It's not quite like that, obviously, but that's the direction that it goes in. It's well known stress causes disease. It's well known stress can kill you, shock can kill you, all these psychological things, emotional things can kill you. So it's not so much of a stretch to think that if you are under stress or not sleeping so well, these sorts of things, not having broken sleep, not resting deeply, not being able to relax, all those things make you ill and shorten your life and give you a lot of pain and suffering. So this is another reason. So let's just sum this up. Everybody is loaded up during their upbringing with various levels of negative input, from teasing to humiliation to rejection, even assault, unfortunately. Your surface personality, the personal mind, buries this into the subconscious. The mix of it forms a personal myth or story that you live out, made up of all these elements. So if you were bullied at school and you develop the belief that I am not worthy or I don't deserve a great life, that very strong unresolved subconscious pattern will make sure that you don't have a great life. Or if you were treated as a little prince by your parents bringing you up, and then you left home, and as you grow up they pass away and there you are, you might still expect to be treated like a prince, but of course it's hard to find subjects in today's world to do that for you. So you're confused through life. Why isn't life delivering to me what I want? I don't want to do anything to get it, mind you. This is what a prince thinks. I would just like to get it. It's not coming, and you get very depressed and confused. So whatever your story is, and try and identify your story while we're talking about this now, what is your personal myth? What is the story that you are actually living out right now? Because you've got one. Your life is the expression of it. But if you can hear it inside your mind, you'll see that it's tied up with all these contractions that we were talking about before. So you can live in the personal mind like that, but if there is any challenge to you or change or something shattering takes place, then this opens the inner door to that buried fear and allows it to either seep or flood to the surface. This is what happens for so many people. Some challenge arises, relationship, money, job, whatever it is, it arises, the trapdoors open, and the emotion starts to come to consciousness. And that's very frightening for a lot of people. And worse still, if you have this, you cannot act rationally, logically, clearly. You can't think clearly. It's something that will undermine you dramatically. And this is the ground that gives the big negative states. So it's important to keep in mind that the core reason for the problems in your life are separation, non-identification with your true natural self. So don't waste any more time trying to work it out at the surface of your personal mind. A lot of people waste years, decades, trying to work things out with their personal mind. I want to make my life work in this way or that way. This kind of thing goes on. Unsuccessfully, unfortunately. It seems maybe sometimes it's a temporary lift, but back they go. Because unless you obviously remove the source, you've got to keep going back to it. And all the great masters of every tradition, of every country, of every age, have said the same thing. If you rest in your true self, then you will experience continual strength and courage, and you will no longer burn in the fires of anxiety and fear. And that's where you want to get to. You want to get to that place. And the lack of knowledge of the self, of the natural self, results not only in fear and anxiety, but also in self-hate. People hate themselves. They hate other people, some different people. Usually people who hate themselves don't necessarily hate other people. They get into self-denial, a range of neurotic behaviors, narcissism, the unwillingness or the inability to love. That's a very, very big one. And even paranoia and the expectation of disaster. And that's why so many people flock to see movies and read books about people going through these deep negative emotional experiences and horrible experiences. You've seen the blood and the guts and the violence that's there on videos nowadays. And these experiences are operating in their dream world just below the level of consciousness. They can't experience them consciously. It's too much for their minds to take. So they go to these ghastly films and they get a little seepage from the films to sort of feed that monster within, you might call it, because that's really what it is. There's some sort of satisfaction to it. Now, also, when you are gripped by the upsurge of anxiety and fear, there's also an idea of a feeling that there must be something wrong with you, and that you might even have mental challenges or disorders. So all this together results in a conclusion that life itself cannot be trusted to bring you a great experience. And what do you then do? You live that out because you project it into life itself. You find yourself there in that projection, your outer experiences, in other words, and that proves to you, because it's in the material world, that what you're thinking is correct. See the loop that takes place? It's very, very tough unless you understand this, unless you do the proper techniques to get yourself free of it. And your conclusions come from your conscious mind, but the projection comes from somewhere in the subconscious. So the subconscious projects, it causes you to choose, you live out this unpleasant experience, that proves to your conscious mind that life's a bitch and then you're dead, which is an old saying somebody used to say on a film I worked on once years ago. And when you're in the grip of such things, you haven't done the personal development work. There is no hope unless you do personal development work. You will be dragged down a slippery slide into the sewer of sadness, as they say, by this material, unless you escape from the grip of it. And what happens about that is that just when you need your personal mind the most to help you through this, it, of course, freezes up. It starts to throw off negative emotions because things are going wrong in your life, and just when you want to get yourself out of it, you're stuck. In other words, your mind functions at a lower level because when you're in fear or negative emotion, your mind cannot work properly. Unfortunately, you can't see solutions, you can't come to sensible decisions, you're not in tune with the superconscious, you're just dragged into the washing machine of negativity. Round and round and round and round you go. And that's a really unfortunate thing. It's like driving at night in a very dark place with no street lamps, with just your side lights on. You can get around, but you're very slow and you don't really know where you're going. It's very, very difficult like that. So this leaves you in a state of not being able to come up with what to do, let alone take the necessary actions, and it can't give you any brilliant solutions. So these upflows of negativity can come from your own experiences, they can come from your parents' experiences that you downloaded. That's very, very common, inherited ones, as they're called. And when you get them from your parents, they come along with their own cellular tension as well. So you download a parental behavior, and that drops into your system, and the cellular tension comes along with it. And this is why people can't understand. They've done so much personal development work, but they still feel restricted because they're just now digging into the layers of their parental and ancestral dumping down. So you have to realize they're not actually you. There's something you've loaded up, and there is only one solution, and that is you must reset your nervous system to its natural state. while at the same time discovering, or rather uncovering, your own true self. And then the negativity will disappear of its own accord. It's not a complicated thing to do, okay? So let's look at what it is you have to do to become a fully alive being and feel great. Okay. So what you need to do is to dissolve the holding on pattern of your nervous system, the thousands of gripping fists, as we've called them. And you must allow it to return to its natural state. Now, this release will have tremendous benefits. People report that they wake up. You hear people saying, I woke up seemingly for the very first time. Something happened and I looked around and I was more alive. They can't quite describe what it is. They have feelings of inner strength, more happiness, more confidence. They're able to express themselves and be understood by other people. So life then becomes bright. They become optimistic, which you will do. You will become optimistic as you get back to this natural state. And new opportunities will open up for you. Feel relaxed. Even in challenging circumstances, you remain on an even keel. You know those types of people that you can't tip them off their perch. They're completely calm under challenging situations. And first of all, in order to allow this natural releasing of your whole system, the first step is to cause a deep natural relaxation to take place. This is best achieved by immersing yourself in the sounds of nature, coupled with special instructions spoken in specific ways. Now, why does it work? Well, your DNA recognizes from its thousands of years of experience anything that is totally natural. And it responds to that input by releasing inner tension. That's what it does. You may be familiar with stories of people who've been unable to sleep properly for years or even decades, and they go to the Kimberleys or other wilderness areas, camping under the stars with not a human light to be seen, like this huge sphere of bright stars. They're lying underneath there, and they fall asleep easily, full through the night for several nights in a row. This is because their DNA has been reset from the sounds and atmosphere of nature. It's the sounds that do it. Unfortunately, when these people come back to the city, and I've known a few of them, they revert back to their old ways because the habit patterns of the city life have quickly plugged in again once they revert back. So you need regular, consistent practice over a period of time to build a new habit of being able to deeply rest the cellular tension. And this same reality, which is the infusion of natural sounds and proper spoken words and instructions, because the mind must be instructed, can work for you. This is what you need to do. If you truly wish to reset your system, get away from the cellular tension, retrain through a regular process your whole nervous system to let go, to relax, not just by doing a relaxation tape, that could be helpful, but with the infusion of the natural sounds and the proper spoken words, then that will happen for you. And this is what happens in the Natural Self program, which after many requests I've created for you. So many people want to do, they try to do it themselves and they can't. You can record a bit of nature, but it doesn't work. You've got to have those proper instructions along with it, with a good proper voice doing it for you. So this is what happens in the Natural Self program, which I have created for you. And as you listen to the specially produced Natural Self audios, your mind cannot differentiate between what is real nature and what is created when your eyes are closed. In other words, as you know in a dream, your mind believes that you are in it. You're running through the forest or whatever it is, and there's a grizzly bear there, and oh, look out. And you really believe it fully. The body reacts emotionally, physically, in other words, to the dream. So the mind does not differentiate between what is real and what is introduced, seemingly real, if you'd like. And what happens also is that, have you noticed how the Christian monasteries, Indian ashrams, Tibetan lamasseries, and other similar venues in all cultures are most often located in either the mountains, the forests, the jungles, or the deserts. And these places were originally designed to first release tension of the nervous system of the people who came. People come to a monastery for spiritual enlightenment, and the first step for spiritual enlightenment is releasing the tension in the nervous system. You can't make it otherwise. And the easiest way is just to merge yourself with these sounds on a regular basis. And these natural sounds and their ability to release stress and tension have been proven and very carefully studied at Sussex University in the UK with people who have built up stress from a variety of situations. It's now in academia. They've shown it to work perfectly, natural sounds. So it's often forgotten, the sound element is forgotten by people who teach personal development or consciousness work. So my strongest advice is that it is crucial for you to introduce into your mind the sounds of nature, plus listen to the correct instructions to reset your nervous system if you want to be free of all those restricting negative patterns that block your natural self. And so this natural self program has all the elements you need. We've released it last year for a test run. It went extremely well with lots of people getting tremendous benefits from it, because all you have to do is lie back on a mattress or a couch or a sofa and allow the specially created audio tracks. You can listen on your phone or your device or your player, of MP3 player, and you let the audio sounds wash over you from head to foot. It's guided, in other words, for you, and it takes you to the deepest and most natural self that you have there within you. It's a done-for-you program, in other words. It helps you relieve tension, the feelings that there's something wrong in your life, the worry, the overwhelm. These begin to fall away, and new, fresh ways of experiencing life, as well as fully engaging with it enjoyably, begin to take shape. So the Natural Self program has 7 special audios and instructions, and it's designed very, very well to help you release your nervous system back to its natural state. If you do this, you will not have to struggle and sweat and slave and project negativity and react in bad ways and spoil your relationships and blow your ability to make money and all that stuff, because you will be centered. You'll be like the lion, where you just look and you're centered and there's nothing nagging you inside your mind. You don't wake up with, night terrors, all this sort of thing, because you are natural, the natural state. So all you have to do is lay down any time during the day or when you're about to go to bed, perhaps at night, and listen to one of the audio tracks. There's 7 of them. You'll find the ones that you like the most. Some people like all 7, some people like 1 or 2. It's entirely up to you. You make your choice based on the effect that it will have for you. And what you will do is you will feel yourself, perhaps for the first time in your life, letting go each time you listen at a deeper, more incremental level. And this has a cumulative effect in releasing any tension and holding patterns which give you these limitations. As you do it, you'll find that you'll start to bring into your daily life, once you've done it a few times, lying back listening, you bring into your daily life that same atmosphere within yourself of the natural state, of the true self. And you find that life begins to get better without you having to do anything. You are just resetting your nervous system, as I've described, and suddenly people treat you better. the opportunities come your way. Your relationship improves. You just feel better. You don't go into negativity every time you have to do the washing up or something like that. You are bubbling with energy. Suddenly life seems grand. Opportunities come your way. This is the natural state. This is the whole point of personal development work, to get to where you can enjoy this. So the program, the Natural Self program, gives you the opportunity to leave behind negativity and overwhelm, discover more confidence, more centeredness, more expression, more easygoingness. You're able to look life in the face and deal with whatever is put in front of you in very, very positive ways. And so the program is available right now in full. It takes 12 hours for the links to get to you. But the first 25 people, there's an early bird fee saving for you. And this is the most easy and effortless system you'll ever hear about and practice in your life. And you feel better each time you do it. So it builds and builds and builds. And the beauty is you can just relax. You don't have to do anything and work things out. You just relax and let the voice, my voice, and the music, and the natural sounds, there's no music, the natural sounds come through to you. And you will feel a physical release of those holding patterns. Many people report to me they feel little shudders or little letting goes or little drops of sort of, that kind of thing. And this is it letting go. This is the nervous system, the spinal cord throwing off its contractions and its limitations. And it's wonderful to feel this kind of stuff going down, releasing from your system. So it's been designed to allow you to return to your natural state in the simplest and fastest ways possible. And you will also notice a spontaneous release of old memories. Memories that have hindered you will come to the surface, and you'll go, oh, that's what was driving me all this time. And these are things that will come up spontaneously without you even looking for them. And you're recalibrating your system by doing this practice. So it really is a marvelous and wonderful way to become more confident, more centered, more expressive, more easygoing, and be able to look life in the face and deal with whatever is put in front of you. That's probably the best thing that comes out of this, because you start to feel more at one with life. And if you're interested in the higher states of consciousness, meditative practices, the superconscious, this is an absolutely fabulous grounding to get you to the right state, to speed up your path in that direction. So the introductory early bird fee for those first 25 people is $197. There's also a 3-payment option should you so need that, but that's the best value, $197. And you can go to I'm going to type in the link here and send it in the chat box and in the question box. If you would like to be one of that 25, send to all. There we go. You can see that there for you. It's www. If you're listening, domeyko.com, DOMEYKO, domeyko.com/natural self. So that's the link there. Grab it if you'd like to get it. If you have any anxiety or any challenges, you just don't feel life is delivering, things seem so hard and it's like walking through mud, or you just can't meditate properly, or you find your relationship is always a challenge, or jobs are looking more and more boring the longer you stay there, you can't get the energy up to become an entrepreneur and make a lot of money, any of those things, they're all based on the same problem, and the solution is the same for them all. Get to the natural state. Get to the natural self. The sooner you do that, the quicker you will notice changes and build yourself up through this practice as much as you can, and you will be thrilled with the results. It's been practiced for thousands of years. Now with modern technology, you can have it at home. You don't have to go up to the Kimberleys or anywhere else. Anyway, when you come back, it all goes back. So you're resetting your nervous system, recalibrating it. Very sensible and intelligent thing to do. We've had a lot of wonderful reports from people who are doing it. So what I'm going to do now is take some questions And let's see, did I send that? If you didn't get it, let me know if you didn't get it. And okay, Pamela, I'm going to send once again the link there, and let me know if you got it. There's the link, domeyko.com/naturalself. Okay, let me know if you got it, Pamela. I'm sending it there for you. Anybody else not get it, let me know and I'll resend it. It should be there in the chat box, and it should be on the question box as well. Okay, let's see now. Have we any questions? Here's one, Roland. When you found your true self, can you lose it again? Or in other words, how can you avoid losing it while life is going on and bringing you all sorts of surprises? Very good question indeed. The problem for most people is that since childhood, early childhood, they haven't experienced the true self. People are desperate to experience the true self once they've had a little glimpse of it. And people who even hear about it, it's not in our culture, you have to go to the East really, as I did, to hear about it, but people in our culture know there's something missing. I remember Richard Alpert, Ram Dass, saying to me when I interviewed him, very, very wise person, that most people live a life of inner impoverishment. And they get to the end of their lives and they think, what was the point of that? Instead of, at every moment of their life, thinking, wow, isn't it great to be alive? How marvelous it is, how wonderful it is, what a joy, look at that, wow, isn't that? That's how you should be. If you're not like that, in awe of life, if you're just stuck in the personal mind, you desperately need to get to the true self. Because eventually what happens is that people get sick. A lot of people get sick from not knowing the true self, a huge amount. I know of a number of people who have been healed, dramatically healed, from doing meditative practices, these practices that I'm talking about, the natural self practices, because they've found there is something to live for, something really wonderful, not just paying off the mortgage and putting a bit of money aside. That's all sensible and intelligent. You should do that anyway. But what is important is the quality of your life. Do you want to live a life of tremendous quality or not? That's the question. Because why live, at half pace or 10% pace, as most people do? Why do that? When you can have extraordinary experiences where, as you do this, you'll find that as you go through this process of this regular infusion of the sounds and the instructions, which teach your mind to live in a different way, what you find is that as you come out of it, bright ideas come into your mind. I find this, that the ideas pour into my consciousness. I just have to rest for a little bit and I come up with the most marvelous ideas, wonderful ideas from the superconscious. It's not me, clever Dick, it's the superconscious gives them to you. So if you want to enjoy a font, a flow of beautiful, new, original, unique ideas, insights, innovations, inventions, stories, then do this. Just do these processes, these guided processes. I've made this program for you, and you will find it easy as wing to do that. Most people struggle and sweat. You can't believe the people that I've taught writing to. I've taught 1,000 people writing. You can't believe the number who suffer and believe they should suffer with their writing, with their creative act. If you're suffering, there's something wrong. That's exactly what you shouldn't be doing. You should be opening the tap to the superconscious and let it deliver for you the most beautiful writing, the most interesting writing, the most exciting writing, whatever you're looking for, just like it creates a universe. It can pass you a bit of writing or painting or any art form or craft form. It creates the universe. And the quickest way to the superconscious is by doing something like this natural self program. In fact, the natural self program itself is designed specifically to get you to the superconscious as quickly as possible. Why, I really can't understand why people are not in crowds going, how do I live a better life? Don't you think it's silly? It's possible to live a better life. Yes, you'll be challenged. Yes, you'll go through your negative stuff, but go through it. Don't sit with it. Go through it. Listen to stuff. Reprogram yourself. Recalibrate your nervous system. Do what is necessary. You'll be thrilled. People would rather go out and buy a case of wine for the same price as this course and drink it down rather than do something that can give them permanent, natural intoxication. Natural intoxication is a state of consciousness that's available for people who can rest and relax as deeply as possible through this methodology. So I can't understand people who don't do that. Let me look at some more questions there. Pamela, I hope you received that. Marie, thank you, Michael. I've really enjoyed listening to the theory behind this. I purchased it at the first session and found it incredibly helpful in dissolving very old issues from childhood. My sleep has improved, and I had some amazing visions of monks giving me messages. That's Marie. Well, there you go. Marie did it before, and there's an uncalled for testimonial there. Thank you very much, Marie, for offering that to everybody. It is remarkable. You see, you're only using less than 1% of your mind. It's just the way it is. Why not wake up another percent, or many more percentages? You can't wake them up by trying, but lifting weights of the mind sort of thing. You just got to know how to get out of the way. And as Marie found, the mind will start to self-heal. It will self-heal. The body is a self-healing mechanism. The mind is the same. It will self-heal and remove and free you from all sorts of old stuff that you don't want, as Marie found out. Thanks for that.